To continue with our discussion on the derivatives of algebraic functions, let us first recall what we have learned so far. So first, let us recall the derivative of a constant. So we have learned that if we get the derivative of a constant, let's say x is our variable, the derivative of a constant is just 0 because there is no change happening, diba? Walang change sa constant. Then we also found out that the derivative of x is just equal to 1. Okay? Because that is simply dx over dx. Then we also learned that the derivative of a constant times x is just equal to the constant, because that would just be the constant times the derivative of x. And in the previous discussion, we also derived the formula in getting the derivative of x raised to n, which is just n times x raised to n minus 1. And we could also generalize this. For example, if we have the derivative of a constant multiplied by a function, let's say ganyan, so the derivative of that is just the constant multiplied by the derivative of the function. So pwede isolate na lang natin yung constant if we get the derivative. Okay, then I gave you some examples applying these rules. And from the examples I've shown, we could also say that if you have two functions, let's say we'll let u be a function of x, so small letter na lang f of x, and we have another function v, which is also a function of x, so let's call that g of x. So both are functions, both u and v. So if you have a sum of two functions u plus v, the derivative of this, they are both having a variable x. The derivative of the sum of two functions is just equal to the sum of the derivatives of the individual functions. So we have du over dx plus dv over dx, or the derivative of the sum is equal to the sum of the derivatives. So let's now proceed to the next section of this lesson, which is about the product, the quotient, and the chain rule. Okay, so to start with this discussion, we'll just first introduce some functions again. So we'll let u and v be functions of x. Okay, so sabihin na natin that u is f of x and v is g of x. So first na gusto natin i-derive is the derivative of a product of two functions. Although the application could also extend to three or more functions. So dito lang muna tayo sa product of two functions, which is, let's say we have y equal to the product of these functions u and v. Or if I rewrite that, that would be y is equal to the product of f of x times g of x. Ganito na lang. Okay, so if we introduce a change in x, there should be a corresponding change in y. So therefore, we could also rewrite this as y plus delta y is equal to f times x plus delta x, f of x times delta x times g of x plus delta x. Okay, so delta y now will become f of x plus delta x times g of x plus delta x minus y, which is f of x times g of x. Okay, so if we take the limits, if we divide both sides by delta x, this will become delta y over delta x equal to f of x plus delta x times g of x plus delta x minus f of x times g of x divided by, of course, delta x. So if we take the limit of both sides, then that will give us the value of the derivative. So therefore we'll have dy over dx or y prime, that's equal to the limit of delta y over delta x as delta x approaches 0, okay, which is equal to the limit as delta x approaches 0 of this function. So kopyahin muna natin this function. Okay, so let us copy that, then let us paste that here. Ayan, so ito na lang i-evaluate natin yung dy over dx, which is equal to this. Okay, so how would we manipulate this? So we know that kung extend pa natin yung delta y over delta x, that is equal to f of x plus delta x minus f of x over delta x. So therefore, this eto siya, if we subtract this with f of x alone over delta x, so that would be the derivative of f of x. And eto siya, itong term, kung i-subtract siya ng g of x, eto sila mag-partner, i-subtract over dito, this will comprise the derivative of g of x. Okay, so let us manipulate this by just subtracting and adding. It's like adding an identity. Yung additive identity, we know that is 0. So let's just add 0 to this. But yung 0 natin is in the form f of x plus delta x times g of x minus f of x plus delta x times g of x. Diba? That is just equal to 0. Pareho lang naman niya. Then, kinancel lang natin. Diba? Or pwede lang natin i-cancel. Okay, then we'll introduce this to the numerator. Ang purpose dyan is for us to be able to factor out this. We factor out this from here. Ito pala yung ipapares natin. We'll factor out this from here. And we'll factor out this from here para makuha natin yung form na f of x plus delta x minus f of x over delta x. Okay, tingnan natin. So we'll have dy over dx, that's equal to the limit as delta x approaches 0, that's f of x plus delta x times g of x plus delta f of x, g of x plus the additive identity that we introduced, which is just 0. So the value is not changed kasi 0 lang yung in-add natin. So we have f of x plus delta x times g of x minus f of x plus delta x times g of x. Ayan. Then divide this all by delta x. Okay. So we could combine this one. I mean, we could partner this to this and eto sila. Partner, ganito. So we'll have dy over dx. Let me just rewrite this in this form. Let me take this 2 first, then I'll factor out from here yung f of x plus delta x. Okay? So that would be limit as delta x approaches 0 of f of x plus delta x. Sige, sulat muna natin times g of x plus delta x minus f of x plus delta x times g of x. Ayan. Then, ito yung i-partner natin. But let me just write that as plus f of x plus delta x times g of x. So, ito yung inuna ko. Then, minus f of x g of x. Ayan. As, over delta x. Okay, now from here we could factor out f of x plus delta x. So I could factor this out. So that would be dy over dx. That's equal to the limit as delta x approaches to 0 of, we have f of x plus delta x times g of x plus delta x minus g of x. Okay? Then dito naman, I could factor out g of x. So that would become plus g of x times yung may iwan ulit is f of x plus delta x minus f of x. Then divide all by delta x. Okay? So if you notice, we could rewrite this as dy over dx equal to the limit of, unahin muna natin to, that would be f of x plus delta x times g of x plus delta x minus g of x divided by delta x. So plus we have the limit as delta x approaches 0 of g of x, eto na, f of x plus delta x minus f of x, then over delta x pa rin. So if we take a look at this, as delta x approaches 0, this approaches, or this is now the derivative of g of x, diba? That is the derivative of g of x. And if this approaches 0, delta x approaches 0, this will become f of x na lang. So therefore, we have dy over dx that's equal to f of x times the derivative of g of x. So yung derivative, lagyan na natin yung prime. Okay? Plus, dito naman, eto ganun din. If this will, or delta x will approach 0, this will approach, or this will become the derivative of f of x. Diba? So this would become g of x times the derivative of f of x. So that's g of x times the derivative of f of x. Okay? If we simplify that using etong introduce nating functions u and v, so if we simplify that using u and v, so we'll have f of x, which is u, times yung g of x natin, that's v, diba? So this becomes v prime plus v times u prime. So this would be the product rule. So sobrang dali may memorize. So the product rule is basically the first function multiplied by the derivative of the second function plus the second function multiplied by the derivative of the first function. Or pwede rin magkabaliktad. Now, a shorter way of proving this is by just using y is equal to uv. And if we introduce a small change in x, there will be a small change in v. Parang ganun. But I did not use this intentionally because medyo it will touch a little bit sa chain rule. But kung halimbawa gamitin natin, that would become like this. So we'll introduce a change in y and a change in also in the functions u and v. So y plus delta y, that's equal to u plus delta u times v plus delta v. Okay? So by multiplication of binomials, it would become uv plus u delta v plus v delta u plus delta u times delta v. Okay, then if we subtract, remember that, di ba, y is equal to uv. So y is equal to uv, eto na yun. So y din to siya, so we could just cancel that out. Or dun sa mga previous solution natin, eto, we just transpose to the other side. So minus y, then we'll cancel out na siya. So one way of looking at this is just, we know that this is equal to y, and we have y both sides, so cancel out na lang. So we'll have delta y is equal to u times delta v plus v times delta u plus delta u times delta v. Now if we subtract divide all terms by delta x, that would become delta y over delta x, that is equal to u times delta v over delta x plus v times delta u over delta x plus delta u times delta v over delta x. Now, if we take the limit now of both sides, limit of delta y over delta x as delta x approaches 0, that would be equal to the limit as delta x approaches 0 of u times delta v over delta x plus the limit as delta x approaches 0 of v times delta u over delta x plus, of course, the limit of the third term as delta x approaches 0 of delta u, delta v, and delta x. Okay, so of course this is now dy over dx, and this is the derivative of v. So we'll have u v prime. Eto, v prime na to siya. Eto, that is v prime. As well as here, eto, this is u prime. So we'll have plus u, v times u prime, which is the same as what we have derived kanina. Okay? Of course, eto mawala. This will approach to 0 na. This will all approach to 0 because these are small increments brought about by delta x itself. I intentionally left this out because medyo may chain rule na siya because these are functions of x din, yung u and v. Okay? So we'll have the same formula or rule for product. So illustrate this rule. Let's try this problem. Problem 4.12, differentiate the function y is equal to x minus 3 times 2x plus 1. Okay, so instead of expanding this or multiplying this two binomial and getting the derivative by power rule one by one or by each term, so let us just use the rule of products or the product rule. So we do that by, we just follow what the rule says. So we have y equals to uv. The derivative of that is just u v prime plus v u prime. So if our u is x minus 3, or we let u equal to x minus 3 and v equal to 2x plus 1, eto, so this is uv. So y prime would be equal to u, so unahan natin yung u, x minus 3 times the derivative of v. So what's the derivative of this? The derivative of 2x is just 2, right? The derivative of 1 is just 0, so that is 2, plus copy the second function, v, which is 2x plus 1, times the derivative of the first function, this. So what is the derivative of x plus 3, minus 3? So derivative of x is just 1, right? Minus derivative of 3 is 0, so times 1. So y prime is equal to, we'll have 2x minus 6 plus 2x plus 1. So y prime is equal to 4x minus 5. So this is the answer. Now we could verify that using by expanding. So if we have y equal to x minus 3 times 2x plus 1, we expand this first. This becomes 2x squared plus x minus 6x minus 3. Okay, so y is equal to 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. So get y prime, the derivative of this, that would just be 2 times 2x raised to 1, or 4x. So this is 4x minus the derivative of 5x, that's just 5. Derivative of 3 is 0. So we have the same answer, 4x minus 5. Okay, for the quotient rule, we have this formula. If we have y equals the quotient of two functions u and b, so lagyan natin where u and b are functions of x. So let me just describe u or define u as f of x and v as g of x again. Okay, now dy over dx is given as this: v u prime minus u v prime over v squared. So, eto yung rule natin na kailangan memorize. So, the function in the denominator times the derivative of the numerator minus the numerator times the derivative of the denominator over the square of the denominator. So, yun lang i-memorize nyo. Now, to prove this, we'll go back to the definition of the function. So, if we have, let's say, y is equal to f of x. Let's use capital letter na lang. Capital letter f of x. Ayan. And that is equal to, eto na, u over v, which is small letter f of x over g of x. Ayan. So if you want to get dy over dx, that would be, we need to take the limit as delta x approaches 0 of f of x plus delta x minus f of x all over delta x. So yun yung yun yung derivative niya, di ba? And since f of x is this, then we'll just substitute that. So meaning kung may nag-introduce tayo ng change in x sa function, sa whole function, then individually we need to meron din change of the same x dito, or there's also a change in x dito. So therefore dy over dx, that would be equal to the limit as delta x approaches to 0 of, so this would be f of x plus delta x over g of x plus delta x minus f of x over g of x divided by delta x. Then we'll just simplify. I'll try to simplify. So let me just copy this for convenience. Okay. Then eto dito will just combine these two fractions. So combining the two fractions, we'll have LCD muna g of x plus delta x times g of x. Then numerator niya, that would become this, this divided by this, so cancel out to. So g of x na lang. F of x plus delta x times g of x, then minus, of course, this divided by this. So we have g of x plus delta x times f of x all over delta x. Okay, then continue. So we could rewrite this further to, so eto siya, adjust na lang natin pababa, diba? So eto na yung result niya. So I'll just cut this short. Yan, and times delta x. Okay, now we need to isolate the function. So ang gagawin natin, kailangan maka-factor out tayo dito ng either g of x or f of x. Para makuha natin yung f of x plus delta x minus f of x, diba? So we need to factor out, or dapat ito siya ma-separate. Then para makuha natin yung g of x plus delta x minus g of x, kailangan to siya ma-separate. So therefore, sa numerator, we need to add additive identity, which is 0, in the form of, f of x times g of x minus f of x times g of x. That is 0. So we'll just add that here sa numerator. So we'll have dy over dx equal to the limit as delta x approaches 0. Then we'll just add ito, plus f of x g of x minus f of x g of x. Yan. Then divide this all by ito pa rin. So let me just copy paste this. Okay, that's it. So I'll copy this all and I'll paste it here. So to continue, we could now pair this one. Ito dito sa minus. Could pair this one, so we could factor out g of x, and we could pair this one, to factor out f of x. Okay, so therefore dy over dx, that would be equal to the limit as delta x approaches to 0 of, so again ha, ito yung pinartner ko, then I'll factor out g of x. So I'll have g of x times f of x plus delta x minus f of x. Then if I pair this up, then I'll factor out negative f of x. Okay, so if I factor out negative f of x, this will become positive here and negative na dito. So I'll factor out negative f of x. Then yung may iwan sa loob is positive na to. That would be positive g of x plus delta x minus g of x. Ito, mani-negative na to. Because negative f of x yung finactor out ko. Ayan. Then all over this pa rin. Space that. So we'll have dy over dx. That's equal to, let's isolate g of x times the limit of eto. That would be f of x plus delta x minus f of x over delta x as delta x approaches 0 minus f of x times the limit as delta x approaches 0 of g of x plus delta x minus g of x over delta x. So divided by, so since eto siya, bali yung ginawa ko dito is eto siya, I wrote this in the form 1 over delta x, then this minultiply ko siya dito. That's why eto na siya. Then syempre distribute siya doon. Ayan. That's why eto na. Eto siya, eto na siya, nakadistribute na siya dyan sa numerator. Okay? Then over dito sa denominator, this will become x plus delta x, g of x plus delta x times g of x na lang. Of course, may delta x, so we need to get the limit of this as delta x approaches 0. Okay? So, ganyan. So, therefore, we'll have dy over dx or y prime that is equal to g of x times this, which is the derivative of f of x, minus f of x times this, which is the derivative of g of x. Then divide this all by this. So taking the limit of this as delta x approaches 0, so this will approach 0, so maging g of x na lang to times g of x, that is g of x squared. So that's g of x squared. So simplifying this, we'll have dy over dx, that's equal to g of x is v times u prime minus u times v prime all over v squared. Or in short, the derivative, eto na siya. The derivative of the quotient is this. Okay, the function in the denominator times the derivative of the numerator minus the numerator times the derivative of the denominator divided by the square of the denominator. So suppose we have as problem 4.13, we need to get the derivative of this. Suppose you have y equal to x minus 3 over 2x plus 1. Okay, so we need to get y prime. So following the quotient rule, we can just do like this. Pwedeng i-follow lang natin wherein the denominator is naka-square. So let's just square this. That would be 2x plus 1 squared. Then, eto, you just copy also the denominator. Ayan o, naka-copy lang siya dyan. So that's 2x plus 1. Don't forget to be careful sa grouping symbol. Then times u prime. So derivative of the numerator. We know that the derivative of this is just 1 or 1 plus 0. So times 1. Times 1. Then minus, copy the numerator. Ito na tayo. So just copy the numerator x minus 3. Then derivative of the denominator. So we know that the derivative of this, ito na, yung v prime. The derivative of this is just 2 times plus 0, so 2. Ayan. Then simplify, we'll have 2x plus 1 minus 2x minus 6. Okay, then if we release that from the grouping symbol, that would be 2x plus 6. Then divided by 2x plus 1 squared. Okay, then as you notice, 2x and 2x ma-cancel out, so we'll have y prime is equal to 1 plus 6, that would be 7, then over 2 plus 1 squared. So that would be our answer. So we come now to the chain rule. So the chain rule is used to get the derivative of composite functions, or a function within a function. Okay. For example, we have y equal to f of u, and u is a function of x. Ibahin natin. Let's say h of x na lang. Again, this is just a function. I'm not multiplying h with x. So, function of x pa rin to. Same as g of x kanina, tsaka f of x. I just use another letter. So, I just used h of x. Okay? Ayan. To derive this, ganito ang gagawin natin. If we introduce a change in y, that means we also had a change in x. I'll change in u. Dito lang muna. If we consider this function, so that would be u plus delta u dito. Okay? So therefore, delta y is just equal to f of u plus delta u minus y. Ito na. Minus y, which is f of u. Okay? Same way, if there's a change in u, ito siya, kasi nag-delta u tayo dito. If there's a change in delta u, or there's a change in u, of course, that is caused by a change in x. So that would be h of x plus delta x. And delta u is equal to h of x plus delta x. Then ito, transpose to the other side, minus u, or minus h of x. If we take now delta y over delta u, that would be equal to f of u plus delta u minus f of u over delta u. Then if you take the limit of that, so you'll obtain dy over du, right? That would be equal to this, the limit as delta u approaches 0 of f of u plus delta u minus f of u all over delta u. Okay, so if we do the same here, we'll have delta u. Ito, yung variable natin dito, or independent variable, is x. So we have delta u divided by delta x. That would be equal to h of x plus delta x minus h of x over delta x. So if you take the limit of that, we'll have dy over dx, which is equal to the limit of this as delta x approaches 0 over delta x. Okay? So, if you notice, ito siya, it's getting the derivative of the function as a function with respect to u. Pero dito, getting the derivative of the function with respect to x. So I will try to explain that in detail mamaya. Pero if you notice, what we are trying to get is dy over dx, and what we got here is dy over du, and this should be du. Sorry. This should be du over dx. So ang nakuha pa lang natin is dy over du and du over dx. And what we want is dy over dx. But if you multiply dy over du by du over dx, you will get dy over dx, diba? So therefore, this is now the chain rule. This is the Leibniz notation of the chain rule. Okay, so meaning dy over dx is equal to the derivative of y with respect to u times the derivative of u with respect to x. But if masyadong complicated pa siyang function. For example, ganito, y is a function of u, and u is a function of z, and z is a function of x. So it's a function within a function within a function. Okay. So yung gagawin lang natin to get the function or the derivative of y with respect to x is just get the derivative of this first. That would be dy over du. Then multiply that by the derivative of this sunod. That would be du over dz, and multiply that by the derivative of this function, which is dz over dx. So parang chain lang siya. Or here's an easy way of remembering the chain rule. So you're like imagining, this is common way of remembering the chain rule. Just remember a pregnant mother. Ilang beses niyo na itong nakitang example. Suppose you have a pregnant mother. Siyempre, sa loob ng pregnant mother, there's a baby. Then, if you get the derivative of the pregnant mother, that means containing a baby, that is equal to the derivative of the pregnant mother, pumapangit na yung drawing, times the derivative of the baby. Ayan, so nito na yung baby. Kung yung baby may function pa sa loob, let's say yung baby may bulate, times the derivative of the bulate. Ayan, the worms of the baby. Ganon. So, parang ganon yung chain rule. The derivative of the whole function times the derivative of the function within that function times the derivative of the function within that function within that function. Okay, to illustrate this problem, to illustrate this rule, let's try to solve this problem. This is problem 14.11, then copy lang natin as 4.14. Okay, so ito siya. What we did before, we expanded this. Here's our solution to that. We expanded it first, then we get the derivative, and we factor out and simplify. So what we'll do here is we'll just apply the chain rule, because if you notice, we have a function within a function. Or we could look at it as, kung dito tayo sa pregnant mother analogy, this is the pregnant mother and this is the baby. Okay? Okay. So if we let the baby equal to u, so u is equal to 2x minus 3. So that means y, which is the mother, is equal to u cubed. Ayan ba? So if this is u, eto siya. So therefore, y is equal to u cubed. Eto na siya. So the mother and the baby. Okay. So first we get the derivative of the mother. So dy over du with respect to the baby. That is equal to, by power rule lang, that is equal to 3u squared. Okay? Now let us get the dapat dito kung ito linagay. Ayan. So let us get the derivative of the baby. Ito. So that would be du over dx. Diba? So the derivative of this is just 2. That's because it's 2 minus 0. So that is just 2. Now what we are trying to solve is dy over dx, or y prime, which is equal to dy over du times du over dx, which is equal to the derivative of the mother, ito yan, 3u squared times the derivative of the baby, which is 2. Okay, so therefore dy over dx is equal to 6u squared, which is equal to 6 times, we know that u is 2x minus 3, so 2x minus 3 squared. So that is our answer. So if you notice, that is the same as our answer in our previous solution, 6 times 2x minus 3 squared. Okay, so that is how we use the chain rule. The derivative of the mother times the derivative of the baby times derivative of the bitok, if na ay bitok. Okay. So let's try another example. Let's try problem 4.15. Suppose the function is equal to the square root of x minus 3. Ayan, need to get y prime. So in this particular function, instead of applying yung in-apply natin sa una, the definition in which we need to introduce delta x and delta y, mag-chain rule na lang tayo. So yung mother function natin is ito. So gamitin na natin si u. If we let u equal to x minus 3, so y is equal to square root of u, or we could rewrite y as u raised to 1/2. Okay, and we know that the derivative of u with respect to x, what's the derivative of this? Or du over dx, that is just equal to the derivative of this, which is 1 plus 0, so that's equal to 1. Now if we take the derivative of the mother, because we already obtained the derivative of the baby, so if we take the derivative of the mother, we just use a power rule. So we have dy over du equal to 1/2 u raised to 1/2 minus 1. Sorry, that would be negative 1/2. Okay, so if we rewrite that, dy over du would be 1 over 2 square root of u. Diba? Balik natin sa radical, then lagay natin sa denominator, or lagay natin sa denominator then balik sa radical. It would be like that. So therefore dy over dx is equal to dy over du. Ito na, we know that that's dy over du times du over dx. Okay, and dy over du natin is this yan, and du over dx is just 1. So therefore dy over dx is just 1 over 2 square root of u times 1. So ganun pa rin, which is the same as square root of u, which is x minus 3. So this is the answer. So next, let us have the power rule combined with the chain rule para mas madali yung mga solutions natin. Okay, so if we have a function y equal to u raised to n, so applying the chain rule, where of course u is a function of x. Okay, so applying the chain rule to this expression, will have dy over dx equal to the derivative of the mother. Of course, the derivative of the mother is n times u raised to n minus 1 times the derivative of the baby. So in this case, the function within the function, or the baby, ito, is u. So the derivative of u is just du over dx. So this is the chain rule, the power rule with chain rule. Okay, then actually we could also derive the quotient rule using the chain rule. Okay, look at this. Actually we could use the power rule combined with the chain rule. Yun yung iniwasan ko kanina. That's why yung proving natin sa quotient rule is medyo mahaba, because iniwasan ko muna yung chain rule. Hindi ko pa kasi na-discuss. But since we already discussed the chain rule, we'll try to derive the quotient rule using the product rule with the chain rule. So let's take that as problem 4.16, which is y equal to u over v, and we need to find y prime, or let us define y prime as dy over dx. Okay, so yung gagawin natin. So suppose di pa natin alam yung quotient rule, we'll apply the product rule and the chain rule. So what we need to do here is to rewrite this function into a product. That would be a product, or the product of u and v raised to negative 1. So product na siya ng dalawang function. Okay, and both u and v are functions of x. So where u and v are functions of x. So by product rule, we have this dy over dx, or y prime, that is equal to copy the first function, which is u, times the derivative of the second function, which is u raised to, no, I mean v raised to negative 1. So the derivative of that is negative 1 times v raised to negative 1 minus 1, that's negative 2, times the derivative of the baby, derivative of b, that's dv over dx. Then plus, copy this, v raised to negative 1 times the derivative of the first function, which is simply du over dx. Ayan. So from here, we could factor out v, and yung pinaka lesser na exponent ng v, yun yung i-factor out. In this case, negative 2 is less than negative 1, so we need to factor out negative 2. So if we factor, we need to factor out v raised to negative 2. So if we factor out v raised to negative 2, this will become negative u times ito, dv over dx, plus, since we factored out v raised to negative 2, it's like we divided this by v raised to negative 2. And alam naman natin how to simplify this, so that will be v raised to negative 1 minus negative 2, which is v raised to 1. So that will be v raised to 1 du over dx. So rearrange dy over dx is equal to, let's rearrange this, v du over dx minus u dv over dx, then over, eto siya, lagay lang natin as denominator, v squared. So that is our formula for the quotient rule, or that is the same as the formula in the quotient rule. So eto siya, eto, or eto, ganun pa rin, because u prime is du over dx and v prime is dv over dx. Ganun din naman yan. Now let us try to solve this next problem, problem 4.17. So in this case, quotient lang siya, so pero medyo madali lang, no? It's just quotient, pero the numerator is a composite function because we have a function within a function, okay? Or we have the mother and we have a baby. Ayun. So how do we solve this? Use the quotient rule. So we have y prime, that's equal to, square the denominator, so x squared, copy the denominator, that's x. So derivative of the numerator, that would be the derivative of the mother is 2 times 1 minus 2x raised to 2 minus 1, which is 1. Diba? So I'm just using the general power rule with the chain rule. Okay? So this is the derivative of the mother, eto, times the derivative of the baby. Ito yung baby, diba? Ito. So then sa derivative of this, that would be 0 minus 2. So that's negative 2. Okay? So this is the derivative of the function. Ito. Okay? Then minus, copy the numerator, that would be 1 minus 2x squared times the derivative of the denominator. Derivative of x is just 1, so times 1. Then simplify. So you have y prime is equal to, I can factor out ito because raised to 1 to siya, ito raised to 2. So I'll just factor out 1 minus 2x. Then yung may iwan dito is negative 2 times 2, that's negative 4 times x. So negative 4x minus, ito siya minus, naiwan dito, I factored out, ito lang yung pinactor out ko, then may 2 siya dito, so may iwan pang isa. So that would be times 1 minus 2x. Ito, naiwan din yung 1, so I don't need to write that. Then divide all by x squared. Ayun, then simplify, we'll have y prime is equal to 1 minus 2x times, we have negative 4x, negative 4x minus 1 plus 2x. And we have x squared. So y prime is equal to 1 minus 2x times, so pwede natin factor out yung minus na lang, no? Or pwede ganito, negative 1 minus 2x over x squared. Or y prime is equal to, if I factor out negative here, that would be negative 1 minus 2x times 1 plus 2x, then all over x squared. So you can have this as our answer. Or pwede ring, that would be negative 1 minus 4x squared over x squared if you like. So that is our answer. Okay, suppose we have this function y is equal to the square root of 1 plus the square root of 1 minus x. So in this case, we have a function within a function within a function. So we have a mother, a baby, and a bitok. Umabot tayo sa bulate. Okay. So to solve this, just use chain rule. Okay. So we'll start with, of course, dy over dx. That's equal to, let's start with the derivative of the mother. So we could rewrite this as raised to 1/2, right? How about if we rewrite this as y equal to 1 plus 1 minus x raised to 1/2 raised to 1/2. Pwede ganon para mas madali. Then we take this as the mother, the baby, and the worm of the baby. So dy over dx is just equal to the derivative of this, the whole function, the mother. So that would be 1/2 times 1 plus 1 minus x raised to 1/2. Raised to, then 1/2 minus 1, that would be negative 1/2. Okay, so this is the derivative of the mother. Then multiply that by the derivative of the baby. So it's a derivative of this. So let me put a bracket there and adjust. So derivative of the baby. So the derivative of this is 0. Then the derivative of this, that would be 1/2 times 1 minus x raised to 1/2 minus 1. That's raised to negative 1. Okay, so this is the derivative of the baby. Or pwede din tayo dito tumingin. So this is, the derivative of this is this. Then the derivative of this is this. Then this time we'll take the derivative of the bitok or the worm of the baby. Ito. So derivative of 1 minus x, which is negative 1, right? So times negative 1. Ayun. So therefore, simplify na natin. That would be, we just multiply this and this and this. That's 1/4. Negative 1/4. So dy over dx is equal to negative 1/4 times 1 plus, gawin ko na lang kayang bracket, times 1 plus 1 minus x raised to 1/2 raised to negative 1/2 times 1 minus x pala. 1 minus x raised to negative 1/2. And we know that raised to negative, nasa baba siya. Then raised to 1/2, that's square root. O sige, isa-isa na lang natin to avoid confusion. So that would be negative. So 4 na to dito. So this would become 1 plus 1 minus x raised to 1/2 raised to 1/2 times 1 minus x raised to 1/2. Ayan. Then if I change that to the original form, that would be negative 1 all over 4. So ito siya, raised to 1/2 sa square root times the square root of 1 plus square root of 1 minus x. Then multiplied by the square root of 1 minus x. Or we could combine this into one radical na lang. So dy over dx is equal to negative 1 then over 4 times 1 minus x times 1 plus square root of 1 minus x. So that's our answer. Ito answer natin. Now for your assignment, I want you to solve this in 2 ways. So solve this first by quotient rule, then compare your answer using the product rule. So yun lang. And I'll see you in the next videos.